Pezeshkian, acknowledging these issues now.
Yeah, it plays dumb.
So this phrase is very important. For whose interest the decisions are made.
When we talk
monoxide
about
carbon.
pollution in the air in Los Angeles, is that comparable, or is it completely a different
No,
scale?
the only cities which can be compared to Tehran would be New Delhi or Islamabad or yeah.
Let me remind everyone, technology, money, a good economy, all of those, without a proper decision-making proportionate to national interest, without institutions, without a democracy, could not lead to a sustainable development in terms of energy, water, etc.
I mean, you cannot do anything. You're powerless, right?
Yes.
The government doesn't care about you, so you need to care about yourself and your family. That's the only thing that you can do.
Yes, we know what's going on with the regime, the government, etc. But we have people still, like many millions of people, millions of freedom-seeking people living in Iran. They want a better future, and we have a responsibility.
It's November 27, 2025. This is Rook. Hi there, welcome to episode 398 of Rook. I'm Jian Ghomeshi. Salam dostan aziz. Durud bar shoma. I hope you are doing well wherever you are tuning in from around the world. The title of today's episode is How Dire is the Environmental Crisis in Iran? It's a subject that is not light, it's not distant, it's not abstract. Iran is facing an environmental crisis that is now touching nearly every part of daily life: the air, the water, the energy grid, the soil beneath people's feet. And before we go any further, a brief acknowledgement. Those of us outside Iran do not pretend to know more than those who are living this reality every day, the people breathing that air, drinking that water, watching the rivers run dry. They hold the lived truth, but the information we are discussing today is drawn from Iranian researchers, Iranian institutions, global studies, experts around the world, including analysis from inside the country's own environmental agencies as well. This is not an outside opinion. These are the numbers, warnings, and findings coming from Iranian experts themselves. And those numbers are staggering. Let's begin with the air, because in recent weeks, this fall, the air in many Iranian cities has become genuinely dangerous. Tehran's PM 2.5 levels, the most harmful particulate matter, have repeatedly hit 200 to 250 AQI, air quality index. That's categorized as very unhealthy to hazardous. Context matters here. The World Health Organization recommends a PM 2.5 limit of 15. Tehran hasn't just been above that. Tehran has been 15 times above that on multiple days in just the past few weeks. Other major cities like Isfahan, Mashhad, Ahvaz, Karaj have recorded AQI surges of 300 and higher, levels where authorities around the world tell people not to go outdoors at all. Iran's own Parliamentary Research Center estimates that around 40,000 Iranians die each year due to air pollution alone. 40,000. Other reports put it close to 60,000 a year. More than traffic accidents, more than many cancers, a silent wave of preventable loss. As environmental scientist Kaveh Madani has put it, Iran is choking not just on pollution, but on the consequences of unsustainable decisions. And those decisions extend far beyond the air, because you cannot talk about pollution in Iran without talking about water bankruptcy, one of the greatest and gravest environmental failures anywhere in the Middle East. According to multiple hydrology reports, 60 to 70% of Iran's groundwater aquifers are now depleted. Rivers like Zayanderud and Karun are dry or barely flowing. Lakes and wetlands, including the ecosystems that once tempered dust storms, are shrinking or gone. And what happens when wetlands dry? Well, as environmental activist and cartoonist Nick Cossar has warned for years, when you drain the wetland, you create a dust factory. That factory is now pumping out the particulates across central and southern Iran, adding a natural layer of dust on top of the man-made pollution from cars, refineries, and old power plants. In some provinces, land subsidence, that's the ground literally collapsing, is now over 25 centimeters per year, among the fastest rates in the world. And then comes the third part of this dangerous triangle, the energy crisis. Iran is an energy-rich nation experiencing energy shortages. It sounds counterintuitive, right? It sounds contradictory until you look at the reality. Over 90% of Iran's electricity is generated from fossil fuels. Many power plants run at below 30% efficiency, meaning they burn more fuel and emit more pollution than almost anywhere else in the region. Gas shortages hit every winter, electricity cuts every summer, sanctions block access to new technology, and subsidies encourage overconsumption. An energy system that can't power the country, and a pollution system that is overwhelming it. So what we're looking at is not just one crisis, it's a polycrisis, where air feeds into dust, dust feeds into water collapse, water feeds into energy shortages, and the entire system loops back into public health. And again, the Iranian people did not cause this. They are enduring it. It is mismanagement. Today, we're going to break this down clearly, simply, globally, and ask, how did this happen? Why is it getting worse? And what does this environmental storm mean for the future of Iran? To help us answer these questions, we have two experts in the Rook Studio whose work sits right at the heart of the crisis. We'll get to that in just a moment. First, let me tell you about something exciting, a sidebar to this conversation, a date that you need to hold, especially if you are in the greater Toronto area. So, if you live in Toronto, if you live anywhere near Toronto, or if you're willing to take a trip to Canada, Rook Live 6 is coming. This is the live iteration of Rook. This is the show Rook, and as you may know, if you're a regular watcher or a listener, we are now doing this show from time to time in front of a live audience in a big theater. We've done Rook Live 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We are now at Rook Live 6. It's coming next week on this show. I'm going to announce the lineup for our next Rook Live. Tickets will be available the following week, but I can tell you this right now. Put this date on hold, especially if you're in the greater Toronto area. Thursday, February 19th, 2026. Thursday, February 19th, 2026 is the date for Rook Live 6. We'll announce the lineup next week. Tickets go on sale the week after. Feb 19th, put it on hold. Today's edition of Rook is brought to you in part by Quasar Homes. Quasar is a name synonymous with quality, detail, and innovation in Toronto's custom home building and major renovations. Founded and led by Amir Firouz, Quasar Homes has become a trusted choice for families who want exceptional craftsmanship and a seamless building experience with a passion for creating homes that combine elegance, comfort, and functionality. Amir and his team continue to raise the standard of living for homeowners across the city. They also happen to be the sponsors of the Rook Media Icon Award at each Rook Live. If you are looking to build, consider Quasar. Check them out at Quasar Homes on Instagram, QUASAR Homes on Instagram. All right, let's get to my two featured guests today. Roozbeh Eskandari, a researcher and environmental specialist who studies Iran's water systems, the rivers, the aquifers, the watersheds that support life across the country. His work focuses on water bankruptcy, the collapse of wetlands, and how mismanagement has turned natural resources into major risks. He's here to help us understand what's happening beneath the surface. And Farid Safari, an engineer and analyst focused on Iran's energy systems, the fragile fragile grids, gas supplies, fossil fuel infrastructure that keep the country running. He studies how outdated energy production subsidies and modernization failures feed directly into pollution and public health crises. He joins us to break down the energy side of the environmental collapse. Roozbeh and Farid, Khosh Amadi, thanks for being here.
Thanks, Jian. Thanks for having me.
Nice to see you. Thanks, Farid.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Okay, so obviously those who follow what's going on in Iran are seeing all kinds of things in their Instagram and Twitter feeds or in headlines from Persian media. Some of it seems dire. Some of it seems like things we've seen before. I want to ask you both personally, first to begin with. How would you each describe this environmental crisis that Iran is facing right now? Farid?
It's very sad, first of all, to see a country in this situation, in a situation that, like many people, are dealing with this health issues, everyday life issues because of the environmental problem. An environmental problem feeds into health problem, feeds into like national security problem. And this situation, how I see it, is like a systematic, basically, problem. This systematic problem, by the mean, is that the way the decisions are made for basically extracting resources, for providing for citizens of a country, is in a way that there is an ignorance of their voice, and there is decision making without preserving the interests of citizens. So this lack of basically vision in the decision making, and that's going directly political from my eyes, has caused this problem. So it's a root cause. But because of that, and when the economic problem gets worsened, when the we have a global climate change, and all these factors come in, the problem gets exacerbated.
Okay. Let me come back to the causes of it. But Roozbeh, to you, I mean, so if somebody stopped you on the street and said, describe the environmental crisis today in Iran, you say what?
I would simply say bad governance. As Farid truly mentioned, we got problems in all aspects of the environmental government in Iran. I mean, the problem is not just the units, or I would say the ministries, who are kind of engaged with the environment, but the structure is wrong. I mean, it has nothing to do to what we call it sustainable development, and it just kind of started after revolution.
But how would you describe the crisis itself?
I would call it a disaster. I don't call it like a problem or leakage. I would call it the environmental crisis.
Based on, meaning what? Meaning what are they seeing? Meaning today in Tehran, I mean, we've seen some of the pictures. It looks like just a fog. How would you describe that?
Yeah, well, I mean, I would call it like a total disaster. It's kind of quiet desperation for the people, not just in Tehran, in Isfahan, in Mashhad. I mean, just look at us now. The people are thirsty. Like the air is polluted. The lakes and rivers are just going dry. And then, as Farid said, I mean, all of these extractions and like the pressure that we have on our natural resources it's just getting worse and worse, and makes Iran, I would say, one step closer to the breakdown.
Farid, when sometimes you talk about this, I mean, especially recently, and you'll get pushback from somebody who will say, every year it's like this, we go through a dry season, is this year different? I mean, what do you say to someone who says this is the same thing we've seen every year?
Yeah, interesting point. So we have a famous saying globally about climate change and environmental problems, that it's okay until it's not. So we say 1 degree Celsius increase in the average temperature of atmosphere in terms of global warming context. It's okay. We are doing our daily life. And then 10 years past, it's 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, 1.8 in global context. But at some point, this trend comes into a full chaos. And that's the time, like we say, it's not okay. It's like a body. Like if you don't care about what you eat, if you don't care about your routine life, if you don't exercise, etc., in a daily basis, like after a long time, it's the
It
time.
hits an inflection point,
So basically, a time comes that it's not okay anymore.
and that time is now.
That time we are getting there from my eye. Like in many points around the world, we have gotten there. So, but in Iran, like in different areas, it's a very basically diverse climate in Iran. But in some areas, I think we're very close to that point, and we see already the environmental problems gets into social problems, crisis, immigration, and all those points. So that's showing itself on the streets of Iraq, and the streets of like different cities because of air pollution, because of environmental problems. So we are close.
Roozbeh, is it different this time? Is this different from what's happened in the past in terms of environmental issues in Iran?
I would say we see the consequences more often this time because of the drought and because of the like climate change effect that we had in Iran in the recent years. It didn't happen in a fortnight. It was mismanagement. It was bad governance from the very beginning of this so-called Islamic Republic, and now gradually things just got worse, and now we are facing the results, the consequences. That's how I see it, because when you push it, when you somehow concentrate on, as we call it, hydraulic mission, which means anything regarding water management instead of doing like I would say adaptable sort of management, you kind of chose to build more dams and like transfer water from one watershed to another, and then you never stopped using or try to decrease the use of like fossil fuels instead of just going to the renewable energy. Now you're facing something that you cannot solve in a single night. And the thing is, I'm going to emphasize is that you cannot see any sort of change to see that the things are just improving.
You're both or you're both not just implying. You're saying that this has been an incremental issue that's incrementally got worse. So in terms of the current pollution crisis, those astronomical numbers I spoke of in the introduction. There's nothing in particular that is different this year. This is just this is what happens when the degradation of the environmental system in a country just incrementally gets worse. Now you're seeing the results. Is that the answer?
Well, I would say just like by focusing on the pollution, I would say it's just getting worse because of the water bankruptcy. Because in government, they have considered something around 12 to 15% to hydropower, which means you're going to use the reservoir water of the dams to kind of generate electricity for you. But because of this like water crisis, then you need to supply the energy anyway. And because of your power generation, you have shortage of gas, which has another reason. Now you need to use fossil fuels like gasoline and so on, and then that generates more.
Right.
I'm
going to get more specific into that. So, Farid, when you said earlier something, this is political, what did you mean by that?
Yeah. This is political by the mean that there is no... so, decision making on the environment and resources comes from the point that who are stakeholders, for whose interest the decisions are made. So this phrase is very important. For whose interest the decisions are made. And because of lack of institutions that reflects the view and the needs of different parts of societies in Iran, different groups, labor unions, syndicates, like environmental movements, NGOs, all those stuff that they cannot freely advocate, and more importantly, They cannot freely charge or like go criticize the decisions. So decisions don't care about like national interest by the mean of the population of Iran from Maku to Chabahar, from Sarakhs to Khorramshahr, not just northern part of Tehran, for example, or a small part. So in a place that decisions are made based on national interest, the well-being of the citizens comes into account. And then for the well-being of citizens, environmentals like the air pollution, quality of life becomes important for decision makers. But the political problem in Iran is that the decisions are made for the interest of some, not for the interest of nation. So that interest of some not necessarily considers like the nation, not necessarily considers the well-being of humans, not necessarily considers the health problem, which is basically a consequence of the air pollution. So that's how I see it. So basically, without those institutions, you cannot preserve the decision making based on national interest. And when decision making is not based on national interest, you cannot expect the decisions to be in a way that preserves the environment, in a way that controls pollution. So that's not an expectation. One other thing. Do you think in Iran we don't have people or we don't have experts right now, even in the current regime, that in terms of skill and education and knowledge don't know things that we are talking today?
Right.
They have experts from big universities in the States. I mean, like, they know the things, they know how things can be done, but why it's not executed in line with national interest? Because of lack of distribution of power, because the power is in the hand of a few in Iran, and that's a political problem. That's how I see it.
2 points on that. I mean, that's all really interesting. First of all, it's always interesting to me that a government or a regime, whatever you want to call them, they may not be interested in the national interest necessarily, as you say, the benefiting, but they're interested in sustaining power and remaining in power. And it would seem like a decent environmental policy would be a good idea if you want to remain in power and maintain a quiescent population. Why is that not on the agenda?
Again, I go back to that word, it's okay until it's not. It's the way also they see it. They say, okay, it's fine. Like I'm quoting, I think Faridun Abbasi, the head of Commission of Energy in the Iranian Islamic Republic's parliament, that mentioned once that it's okay that we burn mazut and people should tolerate the air pollution. I remember that word. Why? Because they are not seeing that as an existential problem at that point, maybe at that point. But gradually, again, exactly like the example of human that I told you with the cancer or with a heart problem or whatever, you are just saying it's fine. I am still alive. I am still walking. I am still going to work. But all of a sudden, once in one day, you will be on the bed in the hospital. So the situation in Iran also, that's what I'm saying. Like they haven't been seeing it as a very urgent issue, but it's going there and it's already late.
Well, maybe another way of saying it's okay until it's not okay is to say that they're day trading. They're day trading. They're not thinking that there's no incentive to think 5 years down the road, 10 years down the road, 30 years down the road. How do we retain our interests today? Because sustainable, and we're going to get to what the panacea or what the correction would be for this, but I'm assuming it takes years and years to reverse what's happening, and so. Even the most liberal-minded Western politician has trouble getting their head around that. Well, sure. Why should I be doing something that benefits the people 40 years from now when I'm no longer in office, let alone an iron-fisted regime, right?
Yeah, and these systematic problems are going that way. So, like at first, it's easy to solve the problem, and the eye of the those in the head of the system, they say like, okay. That's easy, and then nothing has changed yet. But when it gets worsened, many factors come in, and it's become a multi-aspect problem, and it's very hard to manage at the end when it comes to a crisis or bankruptcy in terms of water.
Do you agree with all of that?
Yeah, I believe that the powers to be, I would say the government, as we call it, Islamic Republic, I mean, they have a different insight from what I have or Farid has. They see Iran's natural resources as some sort of opportunity. They see the people of Iran some sort of minions, as they call it, ummat, right? So you cannot expect them to manage things like as per as principles of what we consider as sustainable development. So I'd rather break it down to kind of different branches, but the most important thing is that the structure of this government cannot tolerate development, because when you follow the sustainable development principles, as time goes by, you somehow generate citizens, and then the citizens may require or may ask or may advocate for their human rights. What Nick, Kosar, and me have worked during these years was something we call it environmental justice or environmental law. I know that Farid has some insights as well. But the thing is, this is our right to have access to clean water, to good air, I would say safe roads, decent life. But this is something the government doesn't believe or doesn't care, right? So they rather sacrifice, I would say, half of population in order to get what they want. And this is not something with regard to like national interest. When we're talking about the water mafia, you know, that we had published an article, it means that there's like a band, a group of people who only serve themselves, not for the benefits of the people of Iran.
Yeah.
So when you're talking about benefits, like to whom or for who, right? So they rather define big projects that they can earn some money, and then they just send it outside to be used for their proxy forces or whatever. If you look at the people who are like the government, I would say personnel or staff, you see most of the children or the relatives are outside Iran, which means deep inside they do not believe.
Right. They don't even believe their own
Exactly. Otherwise,
but how do you guys, I mean, real talk, you know, how do you respond to people, some people inside Iran? I'm sure we'll get this in the comments, you know, because there seems to be an emboldenment now of, I don't know if they're people who are pro-regime or they're, you know, that this is their what they do or if they're just saying this sincerely, but who would call some of this scaremongering, who would say you guys are kind of making a big deal of something that is important to us in Iran, but is not, you know, ultimately affecting our daily lives. I spoke to 3 people today. Unfortunately, all of them were in Tehran. I would wish I had more of a national kind of survey inside Iran, but they all said the same. They all said variations of the same thing, which was like, it's terrible. 2 of them said we're not even going outside right now. We consider it so bad, or we're trying to stay away from going outdoors in terms of the pollution. All 3 of them said people generally don't care. Not that they don't care about it, but they're going about their lives, you know.
Well,
so now that's because people still have to live, right? They have to. Right. Yes, the electricity gets turned off. Yes, we don't have water sometimes, but we're going about our lives. So there's an element of you guys in Canada telling us that, you know, things are bad here. Yeah, we can see it, but we're living our lives. How do we walk the line between inventing some sort of massive crisis for the people of Iran versus really understanding what's happening there?
Yeah, I mean, the way I see it is that the Iranians are under the siege of this regime. I mean, and they somehow think about the survival rather than living. This is what the government has done, right? So back to the pollution, I mean, you cannot solve the problem in a week or 2. You need to remove all the industrial polluted resources, including factories, including the cars, which they somehow consume like I would say like gas with the high. The thing is, let me just back. فکر کنم باید دوباره ضبط کنیم. نه یه لحظه من ذهنم رفت سراغ چیز دیگه. If you don't see the root cause for the air pollution, you cannot find the solution, right? Look at the cars that they are just going in Tehran or in other cities like Isfahan or Mashhad, because people's lives are somehow depending on it, right? Look at the factories, look at all these industries who are inside Tehran. The government's duty was to remove them gradually, and they didn't, right? And the thing is, when you have shortage of energy, when you have shortage of electricity or anything, then you need to somehow silence people. And in order to do that, you do not modify the process of this consumption or this problem. You're just like talking about the water. You're just looking for new I would say resources, right? You kind of desalinate the water. You transfer water from one place to another place. You keep building dams instead of, let's say, thinking about why 90% of our water is in agriculture, and then nothing comes out of it. You're using 90% of your water in kind of agriculture, and then it's less than 4% of your GDP. So what's the use of depletion of all these aquifers or rivers? And so
I was going to get to that, but my question was about how people are reacting inside Iran.
I mean,
like one person said to me today that that feels like they're coughing a lot. They feel like they actually physically feel the effects of the pollution. Another person said that they tried to go and buy, like, all of the air purifiers, humidifiers are sold out in Tehran. They can't. Nobody can find any more. What are you hearing from people inside Iran, and what's your sense of whether this is scaremongering or whether this is as dire as you're suggesting?
Yeah. So year by year, I think what I'm hearing at least is getting more literal. Let's say, like, people are saying literally that they're feeling it. They're dealing with it. More families are dealing with the consequences of air pollution. More families are impacted in more cities. So it's becoming like a kind of let's say a basic life issue for people. But I fully also understand people to reflect on this in a way, I don't want to say hopeless, but in a way that they say that we can't do anything about it. I fully understand them because of the political situation, because there are things going on in Iran, like executing like protesters or people, I don't know, like big things that are like maybe in people's eye more existential to life. From my eye, that I understand the basically relations between the environmental decisions, people's life, the number of deaths, as you mentioned, I guess like 60,000 by health officials there from the March to now, like Nowruz from to now, and these things are not like statistics and understanding the relation between these phenomena. I'm not expecting everybody to know it, and it's our responsibility to come here in for public outreach, write about it, talk about it, so that more people understand that how this is a national security problem, how this is a very existential problem that could be not just about this regime or another regime, but an existential problem of Iran plateau and Iran as a country. So that's very
just to put it into global context. So those numbers I gave at the beginning, Iran's AQI levels, though for those major cities, the Mashhad, the Karaj, etc., how do those compare to the most polluted cities worldwide? Are they comparable or
Yeah, like AQI stands for air quality index, and then you have a table. It's between 0 to 50, 50 to 100, whatever. So it's more than 200. It's very unhealthy or hazardous. The standard is like 10 to 15 microgram per cubic meter of air, and in Tehran it's more than 200.
yeah?
So it contains like O3, ozone, NOx, SO2, and MO, CO.
But when we talk
monoxide
about
carbon.
pollution in the air in Los Angeles, is that comparable, or is it completely a different
No,
scale?
the only cities which can be compared to Tehran would be New Delhi or Islamabad
was gonna
or
say.
those
Like in
cities.
India, like Pakistan, or like places that are very populous and like the infrastructure is not there. But obviously, there is one important point on this for comparison. So we need to consider which territory we are talking about and the existing situation. So climate conditions, energy consumption, water consumption should be viewed proportionate to the basically the nature of that place or nature of the location.
Right.
So when we say Delhi is like very populous, like there are multiple reasons historically, culturally, etc. But when we talk about Iran, the important thing is there are too many tools, too many pathways, too many approaches in hand that can be employed for solving this problem,
Right.
for controlling this
Right.
problem.
Right.
Iran is not
It didn't have to happen.
It's not a poor country.
Yeah.
The
Right.
resources are not way less than what the population of the Iran needs. So
In the beginning we talked about pollution, water, energy. Let me ask you how water and energy, and talk to me like I'm a school kid because I don't necessarily understand this stuff. Roozbeh, your area of study, how does the drying of rivers and lakes and wetlands translate into the air pollution we're seeing? If you can do a basic primer in a minute on that, how does that actually happen?
When you have shortage of water on the dams, then you won't have hydropower energy. Then that portion needs to be compensated by other sources of energy, including mazut or gasoline or whatever. So on that part, any shortage of water, or I would say any deficiency in hydropower, will be on the shoulders of the other resources, which will be fossil fuels. That's one. Number two is that when rivers go dry or lakes, let's say Lake of Urumia, then the bed will be a source of dust.
That's
and
the dust
smog.
factory.
That's right. That's right. And then because of the wind and everything, it will just, because when you say PM 2.5 or PM 10 means like the size of those particulate matter. And the thing is, when people keep moving towards the big cities like Tehran, you also have these urban heat islands, which means because of the material or because of, I would say, the surrounding of the buildings, then the temperature in big cities is higher than the urbans, or I would say in countrysides. Especially in winter time, then you will have inversion, which kind of amplifies the effect of that. And just talking back to your question regarding the people, the only way for people is to adapt themselves, resilience or adaptation. That's what we do when it comes to climate change and stuff like that. So, as Farid mentioned, is that I mean, you cannot do anything. You're powerless, right?
Yes.
The government doesn't care about you, so you need to care about yourself and your family. That's the only thing that you can do. People who are a little bit better in, like, financial wise, they will go to the north of Iran, Shomal, as we call it, Mazandar and Gilan, if they have like a cottage or something. But for the people who need to stay and make money, and because they have this economical situation and the poverty, right? So they cannot leave their working places. So they have to deal with it. They need to wear a mask, N95, put an air purifier in the house. But that's the only thing they can do, right? And in Iran, we do not have the problem of the documents and experts, as Farid said. The problem is the execution. The problem is that no one takes the responsibility in the government.
Yes, go ahead, Farid.
I'll give you two examples of how the energy systems and the water issue are intertwined, like
Right.
very
I was going to say, I mean, what
sensible ones.
Go ahead, yes, yeah.
If I may. So one is the mazut problem that it's a lot known now, and we see it in winter times when basically there is a big need and an incremental need for the heating homes. So gas supply, we have kind of some shortage in gas supply, and the shortage in gas supply itself is because of the a lack of presence of international companies, because of sanctions, because of political decisions, and that in the South Pars gas field we are not able to basically extract the amount that it should be. And in that time, they had to basically burn mazut in power plants. Burning mazut in power plants releases, we call it SOx, or it's like oxides of sulfur. And the oxides of sulfur in the air reacts when we have rain and there's a water vapor in the sky, and then it becomes and it produces how can I say, a phenomenon emerges out of it, which is acid rain. So the acid rain phenomenon, when the rain that is acidity is high hits the ground, it goes to underground and runoffs, and it affects in turn the agricultural products. In turn, it pollutes basically the underground. On the other hand, the water problem causing energy, affecting energy, like Lake Urumie, as mentioned. So when the drought of Lake Urumie affects the mean temperature or average temperature in surrounding areas, all the way from Ardabil to Kurdistan province, not just Tabriz and Urumie. And then that change in the average temperature basically increases the cooling basically demand in the summer, all those things, and energy consumption. So basically all of these problems are intertwined, exacerbating the water problem in turn basically makes it more difficult for energy supply, increase the energy intensity, which is the energy consumption per unit of GDP, and increase in energy intensity basically reduces the efficiency of the systems. Efficiency of the systems decreases in energy systems, and then makes the energy systems to pollute more, because energy systems work with fuel, and the more efficient the fuel is burnt, the less pollution you have. When the energy systems are exhausted, when the energy systems are not efficient, then you have more pollution and basically consequently.
Okay, but so let me.
Go ahead.
I think I understand what most of you said, but let me try and break it down a little bit for my own sake. So, Iran has a lot of natural gas, right? I mean, this is the whole counterintuitive part.
Yeah.
Energy crisis. Isn't this the country that got rich because it has energy? So when they're experiencing these energy shortages and blackouts, what does the water bankruptcy? How does the water bankruptcy lead to not being able to access the huge natural gas reserves?
It's basically that's not a direct relation that way that you framed it, but I would say in terms of energy crisis. So there are three main elements in terms of energy economy and energy security. One is resources. Only one is resources. The other one is technology to basically produce an affordable and deliver the energy to homes, to basically consumer, whether it's industry or households. And the third one,
wasn't already in place?
And the third one is market. How to make money out of that energy for a country like Iran that is exporter of oil, could be an exporter of natural gas. So there are three main pillars.
Okay.
In Iran, we have only resources in a big way, but the other two are lacking because of lacking the progress, because of political problems, because of sanctions, because of not proper decision making on those. So just because Iran is rich in terms of resources of energy and natural gas, nowhere it does guarantee that energy security. That's one thing. And the environmental problem and the water issue makes the situation worse for people, puts more pressure on people. And we should not forget also that 10 to 12%, something around that, of the power generation is based on hydroelectric power systems in Iran as well. So we should not forget that for the case of power in summers, that we have shortage of power recently.
I just have a comment
Sure.
regarding the gas, because what we call gas is CNG, like in Iran. But the thing is, if there is something that the Islamic government is proud of, would be the expansion of rural gas network. And now this is going to be a big problem, because when winter comes, you need to supply the clients with the gas, but because of the distance and because of the lack of the compressors and the sanctions and everything, so you cannot feed the people. So you need to ask the industries to shut down so the government can supply the customers or the clients. Otherwise it's going to be a revolt, or it's going to be something, right? And the people are already sensitive. If you if you remember what happened in like 1396 Persian calendar, all these riots and rebels and everything was about the price of the gasoline, right?
Yeah.
So they want to keep people satisfied, and they cannot increase the price of gas per each cubic meter. They have to supply the customers with that. So what is left for the government would be stop sending gas to the power plants and using the mazotes or gasoline instead, with a high percentage of sulfur, right? So this kind of like encourages the air pollution and pollution of the soil, as Farid mentioned, because when you got this like acid rain or anything, then it will pollute not just the soil but also the aquifers, right? So it's like a chain of reaction. So if I'm going to see the big picture from the top, I would call it mismanagement.
When you hear members of the Islamic Republic leadership or the regime now, Pezeshkian, acknowledging these issues now.
Yeah, it plays dumb.
Well, I was going to say, I mean, is that some sort of victory that they're now acknowledging this, or is this some absurd form of damage control on their part?
It's kind of funny because he has been a minister, he has been a member of the parliament for more than 2 decades. Now he's talking like he's just arrived to Iran. You know what I'm saying? Like, let us know what is the solution. At the current time that he was talking, then the Ministry of Energy in Iran said, okay, you know what? We are building 88 more dams. It means that they're not going to learn their lessons, right? So Pezeshkian is playing dumb and trying to say, okay, there is no gas, there is no water. What should we do? First, stop use of water in agriculture. That would be a good beginning. But you don't do such a thing. Just remove all the industries and factories inside the cities like Tehran. Just go and execute a standard for the cars. Just go forward electrical cars. China had the same problem in Beijing, and they solved it in less than a decade.
How did they do that?
Well, they kind of stopped all the cars which were using like fossil fuel, like gasoline. They replaced it with
not
electric.
easy in Tehran.
Of course not.
Yeah.
But then if you improve your public transportation system, people will rely on that. Look at like the metro or subway in Tehran, right? But the thing is, there is no intention to solve the problem. That's how I see it.
One solution has been to the idea of moving the capital of Tehran and relocating a number of people. Farid, do you have a reaction to that?
So just on the previous point, on the confession, or like saying, okay, oh, we have a problem, any statement like that without, I can say, showing the elephant in the room, showing the elephant in the room, the main root cause of the environmental problems, which is political, which is not allowing institutions to critique the decision making, and all those things that mentioned before. I don't take it like as a real like claim that somebody is noticing the issue, and I can like basically sit on a table and say, okay, let's fix the problem. You cannot say like, okay, we have an environmental issue. Oh, we don't have technology because of sanctions. Let me remind everyone, technology, money, a good economy, all of those, without a proper decision-making proportionate to national interest, without institutions, without a democracy, could not lead to a sustainable development in terms of energy, water, etc. So this is the point. You should point at the political system as a root cause first, and then comes into, okay, we need to fix that. We need to fix the big issue. We go that way. We need to allow institutions and allow people talk freely, come back to the country. You mentioned Kaveh Madani went back to the country, wanted to make a change. We all saw what happened. So you should allow all of those things, open the political system, institutions, people can talk freely, can charge the bad decisions, can take bad decision makers to the court. It's happening around the world in European countries, in Canada, places like that. So when you are not seeing those and just saying technology is a tool when proper decisions are made to faster, better, more efficient solve the problem. But only with technology, without, even if with removing sanctions, with good relations with the West, when we don't have the society as a third element or pillar of sustainable development with institutions, we cannot be optimistic about a bright future for environmental sustainability.
And what is the future? I mean, before I let you guys go, again, back to Kaveh Madani, one of the debates we had here on this show, not really a debate, but I pushed him on it. When he says it's irreparable, you kind of go, well, now I understand the nihilism of the people in Tehran. We talked about where they go, can't do anything about this. Let's live our lives. Hal konim. It's like, let's just try and enjoy the day, because irreparable means you guys being here is. I mean, my pushback to him was, I don't believe you actually believe that. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here talking about it. You think that there's something we can do. Where are you guys at on this? I mean, how realistic is it for this to be reversed?
I would say we are pretty close to a territorial collapse or breakdown. You need to see the truth. We've passed, I would say in some cases at least, we've passed the point of no return. We have to admit it. We have to accept it. And Farid and I were both engineers. For engineers, there's a famous quote says, when there is a will, there is a way. I don't see a will in Islamic Republic governors.
I don't think that's just a quote for engineers, but I think others use that as well.
I know.
But yeah, well, where there's a will, there's a way.
We engineers take the credit for that. But right. The thing is, management.
Do you believe there's a way?
I would believe there is a way, but the thing is, this government has proven itself as some sort of entity who always does trial and error, but doesn't learn from the consequences of the error. That would be the biggest problem in Islamic government. And as Farid mentioned, you have a pattern. You have sustainable development principles, 17th. We have the, like in the principle of Islamic Republic, number 50 will be enough. But as I said, you have the, I would say, environmental institution or whatever they call it, but they don't have enough power. They cannot confront IRGC. They cannot confront water mafia. They cannot, like these oligarchies, as we call them, they're more powerful than any government. So Masoud Pezeshkian or even the supreme leader himself cannot solve the problem. There is a way, participation and involvement of stakeholders, the people, and then development is not from down to top, it's from up to bottom. And it needs to be done in the government. So we need scientists, we need experts, we need people who really...
Will it ever be done with this current government?
No, definitely not, because they have, I would say, less than half a century. And what we see is that...
Proof of concept.
Yeah, I mean, let's talk about land subsidence, let's talk about air pollution, let's talk about depletion of aquifers. These are something that you cannot reverse. You cannot just click undo, right? And the way they try to sell it to us, like, okay, you know what, this is because of climate change, this is because of that, this is because of sanctions. No. I don't buy it. And I believe Iranians don't buy it either.
Farid, is there a way?
Well, I've been criticized on social platforms for being way too much optimistic about the environmental issue. In Farsi, say, dilet khoshe.
Who criticizes you? Other environmentalists? Who criticizes you?
People like yourself, producers, other environmentalists, ordinary people in academia, else
Not
anywhere. And but from my own perspective, I would think that yes, we know what's going on with the regime, the government, etc. But we have people still, like many millions of people, millions of freedom-seeking people living in Iran. They want a better future. And we have a responsibility, not just environmentalists, not just people, activists in this area. I think anybody in any area of expertise to basically transfer the knowledge, to do their part. We need to do our part, and then we definitely can enhance the knowledge of the people around this issue, and also like improve the ability. So basically improving the society that still exists, that's still looking for freedom, that's still how can I say, not struggling, but still battling for a better future in Iran. So I'm focusing on people. So I try to connect to people inside Iran from different platforms, different, I don't know, like events, etc. And just talk science, talk about facts. Maybe not even like just politically alignment and without any political alignment. Just talk about the facts, talk about the science-based evidences, and basically shed some light on the basically relations between different parts of the problem, so that they see the problem, they know their responsibility, which is very important in terms of environmental issues.
It's a nice answer. I appreciate that. Yeah. Do you in those conversations with people inside Iran, all kinds of different people you talk about, has anything stood out to you recently? It's like
sure,
one comment
like it's
that
been
really...
like let's say actively 5-6 years. I'm also producing some programs like on different platforms, writing in different medias in Farsi, talking in different media in Farsi. It's not something I would have expected like years ago, but
somebody said something to you recently that really stood out?
But like, I mean, I've had talks on some media. Somebody just came into like one of my social platforms, just sent me a message. Oh, sir, I read your papers. I read your like what you said. I want to just go and investigate on this point that you said. And it was very interesting to me. And that was a kid like in, let's say, Abadan or Khorramshahr, in like a family. And like I'm in touch with them like after a few years. The state of awareness of the family, the state of awareness of the neighborhood has been changed. I'm not saying just because of me, what I said, but many people there, they just need an ignition. They just need just the light of a candle for a hope. So I'm trying to just transfer that light of a candle, my part. So, and I hope everybody just transfer that light of a candle to each other, and we will have a big, how can I say, light at the end, hopefully.
When
This is optimistic,
well,
I know,
no,
again.
or inspiring. When you, again, before I let you go, this time a final question. I mean, do you when you work in this field, and you've been talking about this stuff for many years, do you somehow become inoculated from the shock of it, or does it still affect you? I mean, when you see those images, who was it? There was a famous who posted that picture today? Hami, yeah. There's an Iranian performer that put a picture of Tehran today on his Instagram, and you can't even see, you can barely see the city, right? Do those things still move you, or do you, or are you just kind of neutered from being able to? I mean, having worked in this field, you don't feel it the way you would the first time you see it. Roozbeh first, and then Farid. Final comment.
Of course it bothers us. Both of us, we're working somewhere else. We're not media people. When we give interviews regarding the environmental issues or concerns or crisis, of course it bothers us. Of course it's because some part of us, I would say our root still back home in
Bothers
Iran.
you که حتما. ولی میگم, does it still shock you?
Of course. That shocks me as well. Although I was expecting this to happen, but I was hoping that I was wrong. But unfortunately, I was right. Because when you project the situation before even it happens, you expect some stuff. But you're always trying to keep yourself optimist, as Farid always is. But I'm not a pessimist person. I'm trying to be realistic. But that would be my last thing, that we always think if we save the earth will save us. But there's no other way. Hope dies last.
So I'm gonna say those pictures makes me way more responsible, and that's not easy. Like while I was doing activities on environmental awareness, let's say, there were many points that I got disappointed. Many points. I was explaining things, many of us, like me, Roozbeh, and others, that talk to many people, like in a room, let's say on Clubhouse with 100 people, 200 people, thousands of people. Nobody cared in some cases. So I'm just saying this is not easy in this field to do public awareness, to remain active in this.
Yeah, the
For
majority
journalists,
of people still consider environment as a fantasy.
and
Or luxury.
That's right.
when the responsibility goes on, like when I see the situation gets worse, and I have families there, people are there, you kind of, how can I say, it's like hard to move on one hand. You understand that you have more responsibility and you need to do more, but on the other hand, like you feel not weak, but you see the responsibility so high, and you are somehow alone, or there are not too many people that could make some change there. Right. There are not too many people that could make some change, real change there. But again, what comes as rescue for myself is that, again, I can rely on people, not the regime, to be changed. Rely on people to become more aware. Rely on next generation. Like people are 10, 12, 15 years old, 18 years old, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, so that they know for future generation they could have an understanding of these issues, decision making, political system, environmental problems, so that these things never happen again, or happens less again in the future. when we recover the land, when some adaptation strategies hopefully come into the place, and that generation could make a better life or could make better decisions.
I really thank you both for making the time, for coming to the studio, for sharing your wisdom. Merci. Thank you for this, Farid.
Thank you. Thank you for
Thank you, Roozbeh.
Yeah, thanks. It's been a pleasure. Thanks for having us. Yeah, thanks.
Big thanks to Roozbeh and Farid for coming in and discussing this topic. We want to hear from you on anything related to this environmental crisis situation in Iran or anything else. info@rookmedia.com is where you can reach us. info@rookmedia.com. Or, of course, you can post on any of our platforms. Remember, Rook Live 6 is coming. Unrelated to what I was just saying. Rook Live 6 is coming, however. I'm going to announce the lineup next week on this show. Tickets will go on sale in a couple of weeks. What you need to know is February 19th. It's a Thursday. February 19th, 2026 is Rook Live 6. Plan for it, especially if you're in the greater Toronto area. This is full time for Rook for today. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you for joining us. Thank you to our guests. Thank you to our dear Rook audience and the team who puts this together each week. Savi Roham Meher, Tina Farahi, the photo and video queen, Super P Parisa Sanjarani, and Anahita Nayabi. Also the Smart Pega, Immaculate Kaveh. Is he immaculate? I forget what Kaveh is, but he's also immaculate. Charming Kimia and the Rising Keon. Thank you to all of you. You can subscribe to us on any or all of our platforms for free. You can find us on Instagram at Rook Media. You can find me on Instagram at Jian Ghomeshi. And as ever, Mizun Bashi.